Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our success series. Really excited that you're here today. We're going to be talking about a really important topic, and this is definitely an important topic for many of our students as you are looking at graduate school. And it's really talking about that balancing act that all of us go through when you go through graduate school. And it's that balancing act of all the hats that you wear as a student, as a friend, as a family member, all of these different roles that you play. And how do you balance that and still find success in that journey that you're on? And I'm really excited because Amanda Burleson is with us again this week. And she's going to be talking about a number of hints and tips and strategies that you may want to think about as you're looking at this. And I'm really excited to have you here and to have her here. Amanda, I'm going to turn it over to you, but thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. As you said, I'm Amanda Burleson. I'm one of the counselors in the CAPS office on campus, the Counseling and Psychological Services. And I wanted to talk about the balancing act that a lot of people have to do as a graduate student, managing family responsibilities. I wanted to say as well that family responsibilities doesn't necessarily mean you are a parent, because there's a lot of different responsibilities that students are met with besides being a parent. I think that's the first thing that we think of as like raising a family while you're in school. So today, wanted to give you a brief introduction to CAPS and the services we provide. Um, Looking at some of the challenges that students face when they're trying to balance family expectations, academic demands, and even sometimes working while going to school and having a family. We'll look at some strategies and tools that you can use, and then I've got some resources for the campus and community that you can utilize. And then we'll also take a minute at the end if a participant has like a question or anything like that. So I wanted to start with the CAPS mission, and it is our mission of counseling and psychological services to assist our diverse campus community to define and accomplish personal, academic, and professional goals. And we do this through proactive, responsive, and supportive counseling and services for students, and then also provide education to the entire campus about student mental health. And I think that's important because we're not just looking at one facet of the person or the student. So we help them with not just academic goals, but personal goals as well as professional. And that kind of encompasses what we're talking about today because it brings in your academics, it brings in your future career, and then also your personal life. So sometimes we just can't have one without the other. Some services that we offer is individual counseling. We have couples and marital counseling and support groups. There's right now, I think they're doing a called a Doc Den, which is for students who are getting their doctorate degree and seeking some support. We cycle through different groups each semester, so hopefully there's one that fits your schedule and works for you. And those first three, the student has to be in Michigan at the time of the appointment because of professional licensing. I know we have some remote students. We also offer case management support. So even if you don't need like counseling or therapy and you're just seeking other resources, our case manager is amazing. We share her with the Office of Dean of Students, and she's also working with the Wolverine Essentials to help students meet their basic needs. We have some support and skills groups. We also offer 24/7 crisis services. We do referrals to different campus and community services and offer wellness activities. We have a massage chair in our office. We have a happy light for those dark winter days in Michigan when you feel like you're just not getting enough sunlight. We consult with faculty and staff members to kind of advocate for mental health, and then we do workshop and presentations throughout the year. One of our biggest ones, I think, is in the fall. We have a Smashing Pumpkins event where you write what's stressing you out on a pumpkin and then hit it with a baseball bat. People love that one. Other things are like Coco and Connections, and we had a Mario Kart stress seminar that was a really cool hit too. Um, so keep your eyes open on Campus Connections is where we usually will provide information on our workshops. We have suicide prevention training so that any student or faculty or staff member on campus can be what we call a suicide gatekeeper. And that's kind of a training where you can identify the signs and symptoms and warnings of someone who may be considering ending their life by suicide. And I think that's important to keep sharing that and spreading that information across campus. We provide clinical support for campus events such as like Take Back the Night, which is about sexual assault survivors, or if we have any kind of like heated workshop or discussion or something that we feel that may be triggering or traumatizing to someone, we often have a counselor at least present. So in case anyone wants to process things or needs some assistance. And then we usually will have a table out in the community or out in the campus community, just kind of letting students know about our resources during like engagement or orientation or international student fair. Most of the things that we see revolve around like depression, anxiety, adjustment to college life, interpersonal relationships, loneliness, family conflict, grief and loss, anger management, some sexuality and identity concerns, eating behaviors and body image. Now to say that if somebody has like an active eating disorder and they need medical assistance, then we would provide a referral for a community partner for that. The same with alcohol and substance use. If somebody's in active addiction, they need more intensive services or more consistent help, then we would refer you out. But we have a case manager who makes that more of like a soft transition than just saying, hey, here's a number for you to call. We also see people who have experienced trauma and assault, and then people who are struggling with academic performance for whatever reason, maybe some procrastination and lack of motivation, and then ADHD and focus concerns. So we're a small center with a very broad scope, and we do short-term brief counseling. So you wouldn't be in counseling like throughout the entire term, unless needed. Okay, and our crisis services are open to all students during business hours. You would come to our office or give us a call. Our office is 264 USEN, or our phone number is 762-3456. And we take walk-ins or emergencies like 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. If it's after 4 p.m., we have an answering service. So any time of the day, there's always someone to assist a student in crisis. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a crisis involving like suicidal thoughts and ideation. It could be a panic attack or anxiety, or you're concerned about a friend, and you can call that number. So that's CAPS kind of in a nutshell. This is one of the workshops that we do with Dr. Lewis is we present on wellness series for graduate students. So I wanted to talk today about some of the challenges that graduate students might see when they're caring for families. I think this is something that sometimes goes unnoticed or unrecognized, um, because a lot of graduate students are doing the best that they can with what they have and maybe not expect that they need to share that they have family expectations as well. But there's different kind of family commitments. We have graduate students who are parents themselves, trying to raise a family and go through school. We have graduate students who are caring for their parents. And that is another interesting twist on things when a graduate student has like an elderly parent or a parent who is ill or dependency. Something that's a little bit different than the caregiving is the expectations of extended family. And as we're coming up to finals, but also Easter, I think that's kind of a timely thing because during the holidays, a lot of times families will ask, like, well, are you coming to this? When are you coming to this? When are you going to be done with school? And it can be difficult to say, well, I really need to study for finals. I can't make it, you know? Um, and so families have expectations and may not understand the rigor and the demands that's placed on graduate students. And then, of course, graduate students with their significant others is also another concern. Um, because if the significant other is not in graduate school, they may not understand the demands and how much work it takes to get through graduate school. So, kind of by the numbers here, looking at how many graduate students have concerns about providing care, whether it's children or their parents. In a recent EAB survey, they looked at current and prospective graduate students. 31% of the participants were caregivers for children or parents. It kind of goes along the lines with the other statistics we see where in 2022, the Urban Institute looked at graduate students in the US, which were also parents, and a third of those students were parents. Um, I think the reason that we're seeing those numbers is because the average age of a student pursuing a master's or doctoral program is 33. And that puts you right at the average age of first-time mothers or fathers, because those are generally between the ages of 28 and 31. So we have a time period where students are either starting families or thinking of having a family or in the middle of raising their families. So concerns that graduate students may have, and I want to highlight this too, because a lot of times students may not feel heard or they may feel isolated and not recognize that other people are sharing in their concerns. So the one of the biggest ones that people have talked about is the time constraints. Being feeling like you're being pulled in multiple directions and maybe feeling guilty that you're not able to give more time to one or the other. And we only have so much time in the day, so we can't really double that time. So it feels like if you spend too much time on school, then maybe your family is suffering. Or if you stop studying to take care of your family, that your grades are going to suffer. So there is that push and pull. And financial strain is another thing. So while you're in graduate school, you may not be working, you may not be contributing to the household finances. So that's something that people have noticed is a financial strain. They may feel a bit of a disconnect from their family. So there may be times where, like I said about the holidays, where a student has to miss out on a gathering or miss out on a sporting event for their child. They may even feel disconnected from their peers, and we'll get into that too about the social isolation. Childcare challenges. I know in the winter, we didn't have a whole lot of snow days, but it was enough where if a child's school closes, but U of M stays open, it's like, oh no, what am I going to do with my kid? There's times where a child may be ill and you need last minute care, or you'll have to miss school. Um, and childcare costs money. It's expensive. So that's one thing that we look at too, is that when people are selecting schools to go to for graduate school, one of the things that people look at is what kind of childcare is available. I mentioned social isolation also because a lot of times when a student is struggling, they feel alone. Um, they may not want to share that burden with others. They may feel like they're the only ones experiencing that. And if you're already struggling with time constraints, sometimes socializing is at the very end. It's like, okay, well, I have to study and I have to do family things. I really don't have time to go out. And with all this, one of the key takeaways is that there is the potential for burnout because trying to do so much in such a small amount of time. So some of the strategies that we're going to discuss today to try to help balance school and family obligations is the first one being time management. We're going to look at how to set boundaries and prioritize events and tasks, and then also about building a social support system. So I wanted to share some things that actual graduate students have talked about experiencing in their careers. Um, Charmaine Jones, a master's in public relations and corporate communications at Georgetown University, said, in order to stay on task, I have to create a schedule that holds me accountable to life's deadlines. Sometimes that means finishing a school or work assignment days before the deadline, just in case mommy duty calls, because ultimately my child is my number one priority. And I highlighted that quote because she talks about creating a schedule. So there's that time management piece. There's the planning ahead, trying to remain flexible, and of course, at the end of the day, putting her child as number one. And it's not always easy to make all those things happen. So for time management strategies, I know time management sometimes is a lot easier said than done. If you feel like you don't have enough time, it makes it harder and harder to manage. Some of the suggestions are creating a schedule so that it can help you prioritize tasks. You can set realistic goals for yourself and allocate special and specific times for when you're going to be studying, when you're going to be working, when you're going to be spending time with the family. Even using a weekly planner kind of helps you because it can break it down even further. So you can look at which days and hours are you're using the most, what times you're free. You can make a to-do list so that you're prioritizing tasks and keep that on your planner in front of you. Another thing is utilizing technology. So with like a Google Calendar or other kind of apps, I think there's like Family Wall or Cozy Calendar. You can share these calendars with your family members, so everybody's kind of on the same page. And I'm sure there's a lot more apps that do this. But that way you can designate responsibilities. Even, I think there's even an app for co-parenting. So if you are a parent and you're sharing custody, then you can mark on the calendar like who's getting this kid on what day, who's taking them to soccer practice, who's picking them up from school, what days are they staying with you, what days are they staying with the other parent. So it really helps to have everyone on the same page and looking at who's responsible for what. Another helpful thing is time blocking. And so time blocking would be looking at specific times to do tasks and activities. You would have a certain time where, yes, I'm in lecture at this time. And so people can see that this is the lecture time. Then you have maybe some family time designated. And then other times to do personal activities, times for studying, times when you have to commute to or from campus or from work. And so you're looking at what times do you actually have available and giving every time slot a job. Sometimes with budgeting money, we say every dollar has a job. And in this way, you're also budgeting your time. So every hour has a job, even if it needs to be rearranged at some point. At least you're starting out looking at like what can be moved, what cannot be moved. It's also important to be as efficient as possible. So using downtimes whenever you do get it, you might have a break between classes and you can find a quiet place to study. Um, Finding ways to reduce distractions, maybe even places that where you can have more focus. Also looking at like what times of the day are you most efficient, right? Some people are morning people and they love to get most of their priorities done, before like 8 a.m. Some people are not morning people and they feel like they can get things better, get things done more often in the evening hours. So it's good to see what is your green zone. When are you most effective and efficient at completing tasks? And then also being able to plan ahead. So some tips and tricks might be planning and preparing meals in advance. There's a lot of different things that you can utilize for meal planning. I think there's a lot of websites or even meal delivery services that you can get that helps you plan for meals. Organizing, if you have kids, organizing their school supplies, planning outfits the night before. I remember a nursing student once said she had 5 o'clock clinicals, and so she would get the kids in their clothes for the next day, put them to bed, and then her mom would get them to school and not have to worry about getting them dressed. And while it sounds kind of silly, it worked for their family, right? They didn't have to worry about getting dressed. The kids just woke up, ate breakfast, brushed their teeth, and grandma got them off to school. Sometimes you just have to work with what you have. And the planning outfits the night before doesn't always have to necessarily be for the kiddos, students as well. Sometimes it's helpful to know, okay, well, I've got lecture tomorrow, or I've got a clinical tomorrow, or I have a interview. This is what I'm going to wear. And it's less stress and anxiety in the morning. So, as well as managing your time, setting boundaries kind of goes hand in hand with that. Another student, Serena DeSalvio from Texas A&M, said, "You don't have to do it all. You don't have to be the best at everything, and it is absolutely okay to say no." And that's a good quote because it's, again, easier said than done, right? Having to do it all, having to be the best, and not wanting to say no are a lot of the things that helped students get into graduate school in the first place, right? Being conscientious and goal driven and detail oriented. All those things help you be successful in the real world. However, sometimes it makes it more difficult to set boundaries. So the first thing with setting boundaries is understanding what boundaries even are. There's a lot of buzz these days about boundaries, right? You have to set boundaries. And it sounds like a negative thing, but not necessarily. A boundary can be a good thing. A boundary helps you make sure that above all else, your needs are being met. And it also helps you put your best self forward. So if you're thinking of let's say that your time is like a pie and there's only so many pieces of that pie. You want to probably give others the larger pieces, but then at the end, there might only be crumbs left for you, right? And you made this pie and you're really excited about it and would like to have the slice. However, a lot of times we do that in life. We give everybody what we've got, the best of ourselves, and then at the end, we're like, oh, I wasn't taking care of myself at all. So that's where boundaries are super important. It really does help you put your best self forward and not showing up as your exhausted self, right? Or what you have left. Setting boundaries takes practice. Sometimes it's easier to set small boundaries first and move from there. Once you get in the routine of setting boundaries, you can make them a little bit more difficult as they go. But another way you can set a boundary is not just like with your time, but with others and emotional boundaries as well. So sometimes you have to guard your emotional self so that you can be successful in school as well. Setting clear boundaries between schoolwork and family time, it's difficult. It sounds kind of like a pipe dream, but it's possible. Um, the way that you set boundaries might be different than a classmate or a family member or a peer. Each of us are going to have different boundaries and they're going to look at different. It's not always easy, but in the end, it's worth it. And one thing I was noticing with people setting boundaries is sometimes when you set a hard boundary, like a difficult boundary with someone, you're gaining that much more respect from the person. So let's say, for example, someone knows that you will always be the one to go out of your way to help others. So people know that you're going to help out and you're most likely to say yes. So you're going to get a lot more requests, a lot more asks, a lot more could you? Would you help me out? Can you do me a favor? But the more that you say, I really don't have time for this today, or I would love to help you out with that, but I have school, the more that people recognize that you're not going to always be there to meet their needs, and they can have to find another way to um, to advocate for themselves or to make things work. I think that when you set a boundary with someone, they find that it's easier to work with you because they know that you are prioritizing yourself. Again, not easy, but worth it. Um, Saying no can be a very difficult thing for some people. It's hard to decline extra commitments or projects or going out or doing this, wanting to do everything. A personal example would be my son's karate training, and they always have a new program. And I think, oh yeah, let's do this. Okay, let's do this. Let's do that. And if someone said to me, you don't have to do every single activity. It's okay to not be at the dojang every night of the week. And they were right because it was getting to be too much. And so I was noticing that my son and myself were not giving as much of our energy towards training because we were there for so many nights a week for so many different things. And it's okay to say no. You can say, hey, I'm not going to do this time. Um, and it's going to be okay. Your time is yours to protect. And it's something that you can't get back, right? And so you have to be able to use it to the most efficiency that you can and wisest for you and your family. And now this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to say no to every single thing that your child asks you to do, or maybe your parents or grandparents or aunts and uncles. It just means that you have the ability to say no to things that you are not able to do. Part of setting boundaries is knowing what is important to you. So by prioritizing, you can evaluate what kind of commitments you've already made and then determine the tasks that are the most important or the most urgent. And that way you can kind of decide what you have room for and what you don't. It can be difficult prioritizing when everything is a top priority. And that's why it's important to sit down and look at, okay, what do I have going on right now? What is the most timely? What is the most urgent? And also, what's going to take the most resources? And how much resources do I have right now? By doing that, you can kind of make a list of the things that are important to you. And I've got you in caps because it's what's important to you. Maybe not exactly what's important to your peers or your um, work or whatever. It's what's important to you at that time. And then trying to find ways that you can make those things a priority. It's important to set realistic expectations for yourself and for others. Not everything can be a top priority. If everything is urgent, then there's no urgency. And that's one of the things that we say, because if everything has to be done at once, we're more likely to procrastinate or to have difficulty managing expectations or planning in advance what to do first. So knowing your limits, knowing what is the most important for you, and practicing being flexible and recognizing that things are not always going to go as planned. So you may have something prioritized for one day and something happens and everything changes and you have to reorganize what you were going to do that day. Another strategy is building up a support system. And I think this is so important as well because it helps with that social isolation. Um, Students who are in graduate school and are also caring for a family often feel alone in what they're doing, may feel that other people don't understand. Sometimes I've heard of some students saying, I didn't want to talk to my professor because I didn't really know if they needed to know that I'm a parent, or I don't want to be treated differently. Um, I don't want, sometimes people say it feels almost like I'm cheating by saying I have to do this for my family. And it's not necessarily cheating or taking a shortcut. It's just letting people know what you're experiencing. So Arnaldo Diaz Vasquez is an associate dean at UT Southwestern Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences. And he said that one of the big things when he was in graduate school was engaging with people from all around the world. And it helped him see that he was not the only person that was experiencing these feelings. And feelings that he identified was guilt, frustration, and isolation because he was attending a graduate program away from his family. And it was following a hurricane in Florida at the time. And so he had really felt guilt that he was leaving his family to go do graduate school. Um, but he learned that by engaging with other people, he could kind of build up this community and find the value that social support can bring to your life and how it can positively impact your training and your success. So in building a support system, of course, we start with probably like your peers, your family, your friends. And in order to do that, you have to communicate about your commitments and see if there's something they can help you with. Um, Asking for help can be very difficult. I was at a conference once and the keynote speaker said, and this was mostly talking about like females in higher education, but she said, at some point you have to be comfortable asking someone to help parent your child. And it hit me hard and I didn't like it. It wasn't a good feeling to hear that. And I thought, why? Why would I do that? We don't really want to reach out and say, I need help with this, right? It might connotate signs of weakness. Sometimes we feel like asking for help is it makes us feel vulnerable, right? And it's not always considered a strength. However, the ability to reach out to others and to say, I need help is an incredible strength. So being able to communicate with your family and friends, asking for their support, maybe seeing if there's a task that they would actually enjoy doing, right? Maybe if you have children and your friend has a child too, you could arrange for a carpool to get kids to and from practices or to and from school. Sometimes grandparents are just begging for time with their grandkids. Take them up on that. Like, sure, you can help with this. Um, where I think we see a lot of guilt is caring for elderly parents as well, because students feel like, well, I can't ask anyone else to help me with my parent. It might seem awkward to my parent, or my friends might feel awkward about it. I don't know who else to ask. And that I understand that that can be a difficult thing. And one of the support services that people can look into is through like home care networks. And so that kind of, even if there is still a feeling of guilt, that way they might even, like the older adult or aging parent, might feel like they have more of a companion than someone to take care of them. Connecting with other graduate students is also important because I think you'll find that you're not the only one in your situation. You might be able to gain some knowledge or some tips and tricks from other students, what's worked for them, things that maybe didn't work so great. But the biggest thing is being validated and heard. Sometimes when you share what you're experiencing, just the process of sharing that with another person can alleviate the distress. If a student has a spouse or partner, it's so important to be able to work together to try to create that supportive household environment. Again, this may be one of those things that's easier said than done. on a routine basis, right? I know sometimes people have gone through different types of ways that they try to organize everything and maybe not finding a way to make it work. The main key, I think, is the open communication. Um, Share with your spouse or your partner, your significant other, how your schoolwork may impact the household responsibilities. And I think this can start from the beginning of graduate school and carry on throughout because your responsibilities are going to change from semester to semester. But letting your partner know how your studies are important, how it may impact the flow of things in the home, and and how you can, what they can do best to help you, right? In the long run, it helps because your spouse or partner may not know what they need to do to help. If you can communicate openly and honestly, it gives them an out as well because now you're saying, this is what I need help with. Especially if you involve them in the planning and decision making. People are more invested in decisions if they get to have a say in it. Um, you may feel like you're delegating and people are resentful of the delegating, but if you make it more of a partnership or um, a shared discussion, it goes along easier. And I think people are more likely to stick to it. One of the things that I wanted to share with you as well is University of Michigan has a lot of supportive programs for students. So on the Division of Student Affairs website, it talks about students' basic needs. And on the website, you can click on each one of these, and there's one for health and wellness, and that talks about like the recreation center, different kinds of student groups and orgs. CAPS is on there, different kinds of support systems and skill building. There's also emergency funding that a lot of people don't know about until it's too late. There's some funds that they're like a one-time only thing. There are some funds that are only available to certain situations, but it's important to look those up and find out what kind of resources you're eligible for. I think that when there are financial strains, everything else is so much harder, right? So if you don't know how you're going to pay your bills, then you may not be as focused on your schoolwork as you could be. Or if you're in danger of the lights being shut off, then you're wondering, oh my gosh, now I'm not going to have Wi-Fi. Now I'm not going to have, electricity. And how am I going to do this? Emergency funding is just for that. It's to keep you in school and keep you successful because people hit pitfalls and we've all had emergencies. The Wolverine Essentials program is on the third floor of the University Center, and they offer basic needs for people who need them. So we have a bit of a food pantry. They also have personal hygiene items. They even have like dress your best or dress for success. They have a lot of like interview clothing or business appropriate clothing that you can borrow or that you can take. And also that's where our case manager is located. And so she has a wealth of other resources in the community. There's a laptop loan program. I don't know if anybody has been in the middle of typing up a paper and your laptop is dead and you don't know what you're going to do. We have a laptop loan program. Again, that's through the Office of Division of Student Affairs. U of M is very unique in that we offer student legal services. And I've seen a lot of students actually utilize these services and they feel great about it. It also gives them a sense of self-efficacy. If you happen to come across something that you do need legal help with, if you can reach out to a legal service, then that helps you feel more in control and in charge of your life. We don't ever want something to come up where you feel that you can't complete your program because of something that you didn't want to reach out about. There's student caregiver resources. I have another slide on that too. And then there's student employment services. So I know in graduate school, there's not a whole lot of time to do work, but the student employment services is nice because they recognize that you are a student first. And there's employment resources that are on campus. And if you have like a 2 hour break, you can work for that 2 hours. It's very non-demanding. Okay, and then as far as childcare goes, a lot of these resources are mostly for like early childhood. So there's a great start to quality. And if you just go to the website, you can just look up greatstarttoquality.org. They have they have an information system where you can say where you are located and it'll look up what kinds of early childhood programs are available in your area. If you are in Genesee County, the Genesee Intermediate School District has the Early Head Start program. And so that's for children ages 3 and 4. There's also on campus, we have Great Start Readiness program, and this is free preschool. It's located in the ECDC, so right in the white building. And there's instructions on the website about how to utilize these services. You want to make sure that you click on there that you are a student at U of M-Flint and that U of M-Flint ACDC is your first choice. We also offer free membership to care.com. So that means that you can search on care.com to find babysitters or find someone to care for an elderly family member. Sometimes there's even people who do like nanny service, people who maybe work third shift and they need somebody to get their kids off to school in the morning. There's all kinds of things on care.com. Now, the student is actually responsible to pay for the cost of care, but this just means that you have a free membership through the school. There's also a database of all the licensed childcare programs in Michigan, and that's through the LARA website, and it's again linked on the Division of Student Affairs website. So if you are finding a childcare center and you're wondering about it or how many kids they have, what age groups, you can look that up. It can also show you how many times that they've had like a licensing violation if you're interested in that as well. And then also the U of M Flint Center for Gender and Sexuality has a lot of resources on parenting while in school. If you're looking for like lactation resources, they can show you where to go. Any other kind of like gender or identity or sexuality concerns, it's a great resource to have on campus. And they are on the second floor of the University Center. So I wanted to take some time to see if anybody has any questions. I will send a copy of the slides to Dr. Lewis, and he usually will send them out to people so you can have these resources and the websites that are linked. But if anybody has any questions who's participating right now, you can just raise your hand or unmute your mic and or put it in the chat, and we'll do the best to answer your questions. So if no one has any questions, you may also reach out to the CAPS program. And again, our telephone number is 810-762-3456. So it's very easy to remember. And then we're also located on campus on the second floor of the University Center, 264. There's also a care team where if somebody is having a crisis on campus, the care team can come to you. So if you feel like you just can't get over to the University Center, if you are on campus, and the care team can come to you. So with that, I will turn it back over to Dr. Lewis. And I thank you all for joining us today. And I look forward to doing more presentations and workshops on graduate student wellness.
Thank you, Amanda. So excited to hear all of these great resources. I appreciate you sharing all of these with everyone today. And for all of you that are here, I just want to say, please feel free to also reach out to our office if there's questions, concerns, if there are other sessions you are interested in hearing about or sessions you'd like us to do in the future. Feel free to send us an email at flintgradoffice@umich.edu. That's our general email, so feel free to reach out at any time. But I just want to say thank you for taking the time to come, to watch, to be a part of this today. And we definitely wish you all the best in your journey through graduate school. Thank you so much.